Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Comedian Adam Ferrara cracks up the Arlington Cinema and Draft House in Virginia this Friday and Saturday. We spoke ahead of his 2017 gigs at the DC Improv, hearing stories of his stand-up career and memories of Rescue Me and Nurse Jackie.
Adam, thanks so much for calling in.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Good to talk to you. I'm always looking forward to coming back to D.C. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's one of my favorite cities because you can see things there that you. And it's not just the monuments and the seat of democracy. Last time I was there, I saw diplomatic plates on a Honda Civic. I don't know what kind of broke-ass country that was, but that just made me laugh out loud.
That sums up America right there.
Right there.
Hey, you like coming here. We love having you here. So how many times have you done the DC Improv before?
I've been doing this, I've been doing it since I started. I started doing stand-up July 13th, 1988, and I remember the DC Improv I was very eager to get there because it's one of the most prestigious clubs in the country. It still is, and I still love working there. So a long, long time, Jason. It's nice to come back.
How was DC? Not only the comedy scene, but the plates on the cars, like you're talking about. Just DC in general in the late '80s compared to now.
Well, it's funny because I was a lot different. It's a lot smaller now. I guess when you're younger, things seem a lot bigger.
Right.
And like my father's presence. I remember when I was a kid. It's like my dad was my hero, and he still is, and he's passed away, but he was never scared of anything. But then when at the end of it, at the end of his life, he remember him telling me, he's like, "Don't put me in the ground. There's like worms and stuff down there." I'm like, "Pop, I'm not going to throw you on the side of the highway like a dead witness. Okay, I'll silicone the box and screw it shut." You know what he did, Jason? He bought a crypt because he didn't want to be in the ground.
Wow.
He showed me a picture of this thing. I was like, "What are you, a Romanian duke?" He's like, "No, it's above ground. It's waterproof. This is where your mother and I are going to rest in peace." Rest in peace? You don't get along in a 4-bedroom house. You're going to spend eternity in this concrete bunker with Mom? You know what that's going to be like?
Oh, man.
My mother's convinced. My father passed away. My mother is convinced that my father's a ghost. My father's ghost is in the house, and my father's ghost isn't talking to her because he's upset with her.
So the bickering continues even in afterlife?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I call my mother every weekend at halftime. I go, "Ma, how you doing?" "I'm well. I think your father's okay. He's still not talking to me. He's in the other room pouting because he thinks I'm going to apologize first." "I'm not the one who died on me, Joe." And they just keep... if my father was a ghost, he would come right through the wall. He would be like, "Father, you're a ghost." "Yeah, boo, boo, boo." I'm like, "Have you come to show me my path in life?" "No, I've come to show you the thermostat that's up to 78 degrees. I've been dead a week. You're just burning my money up, aren't you?"
Man, I see, but that's great. Well, I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm really glad that you can sort of laugh along with it and get some, because that right there was a funny little bit. I'm glad you mined some material out of it. It's awesome. What sort of stuff? God, doing like little stand-up previews are tricky because I never want to spoil your guys' material and your punchlines. But like maybe how do we? What sort of topics do we go into at the Improv?
Basically, I take my life, I put it through a blender. I look at it this way: I've suffered for my art. Now it's the audience's turn.
We'll suffer for you.
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing about doing stand-up is you can find something in your life that connects to somebody else. And if you can make it funny, it's a nice connecting moment with the audience. So you just want to be able to take a truth and make it reach out to other people. It's like I get depressed, and when you get depressed, you have to do different things to get out of it. And I've gotten some help from, like, my wife always said exercise helps. And I'll be honest with you, Jason. I'll start the day with good intentions. I'll spend the entire day in my gym clothes.
That's half the battle.
Yeah, she came home the other day. I was asleep on the couch, and she's like, "Are you laying on the couch in those sweaty clothes?" I'm like, "Relax, they're clean. I never made it, honey. It's fine."
The treadmill never even moved.
Never moved. But that's the thing, if you can articulate a truth and make people laugh, it kind of diffuses it a little bit. I remember when I was a kid, Richard Pryor was an idol of mine.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was Prior Convictions, the book I read, and he said, he writes what scares him. He looks exactly at what scares him and writes about that. It takes the claws out of the monster a little bit.
So
and I've always remembered that.
What scares you?
Well, I wrote about my dad dying because it's inevitable. So it was like that was a big fear for me, and so when I started writing about it, it kind of diffused everything. And I see people after my show when they come up and say hello. It's thank you. I needed to hear that. This happened to me, and it's like a common experience that I'm articulating that gives them permission to go there as well. It's like if you want to get a bunch of guys around, just lift the hood of the car.
Right.
A bunch of guys just show up, look at the engine. You don't have to know what's going on. You just look down and you hum. It's like the bat signal.
Yeah, you act like you know what's going on. Well, but that's why we come to your shows, like as fans. It's because you scare us, so we face our fear and come see you.
Yeah. Well, it's a weird thing. That's what I never understood. Public speaking, I guess it's the way you're built. Public speaking is a big fear for most people.
Right.
For me, not so much. For me, that's not really. I'm kind of like built to do it. So.
Right.
That's one of the things I've noticed when people go, "How do you do that?" I'm like, let's be honest, I'm not qualified to do anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Well, right now you're public speaking, but in a different way. It's on the radio way, so we can't see you, so you don't have to worry about it. You literally could be in your underwear. The old nightmare could actually be happening right now.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that. I've seen me naked, Jason, and from the waist up, I'm not impressed at all.
Well, the waist up, yeah, exactly. So when you're doing 3 nights at the Improv,
Yes.
and I think a couple of those nights have several different shows, like 2 shows a night, right?
Yeah, it's 2 Friday, 2 Saturday.
Right. So when you do 3 nights in a row like that, do you have to alter the material slightly, or do you just keep giving them what they came for?
No, I change things around. Well, for 2 reasons. One, people come back to see me a lot, and I'm very grateful for the audience that keeps coming back. So you want to keep it fresh for them, and you want to keep it fresh for you. I do a lot of improv in my show only because it puts everybody in the state of becoming, and we're in the space together. So it's that kind of I guess the artistic danger, if you want to give it a fancy name, but it's that kind of place to be that makes it exciting for everybody and keeps me interested as well.
I like that. Artistic danger. There you go. That's like an autobiography title. There we go. Who else? I think you got some other comedians there featured on stage. Andy Klein, Frankie French. Know anything about these guys?
No, I'm looking forward to meeting them when I come into town. That's a nice thing about Allison. She runs a great club, and it's always a good show. She knows how to put a show together because she's been doing this for years. I mean, like I said, the Improv this is one of the top clubs in the country, so I always look forward to seeing it on the calendar.
That's awesome. You mentioned how you were a fan of Richard Pryor growing up, and I think this was Huntington Station, New York. What other stand-ups did you admire back then as a kid?
Well, back then it was like that was the prize to have was the comedy albums under the bed, and I had Pryor was huge, Carlin was huge, Robert Klein, my father. Someone I found an old album. Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner, the 2,000-year-old man.
Oh, yeah.
That was really great. And Casablanca Records that had Kiss, and it was a disco label in the 70s, but they also had Kiss was on Casablanca, and they did an album of the Tonight Show. That was terrible. They just took the audio from the Tonight Show and put it on an album. And for some reason I found that too, but Buddy Hackett was on there. And Buddy Hackett, my father loved Buddy Hackett. And I got to hear his rhythm and his timing, and Don Rickles, too. Don Rickles was all rhythm. If you listen to what he's saying, it really doesn't make any sense, but the rhythm is just perfect. So I guess subconsciously on some level that stuff seeped into my psyche. But Pryor was was big for me because he could make you feel emotionally. He moved the room. I remember when I was a kid, I saw the Santa Monica concert, which was the one where Patti LaBelle opened for him. He didn't have an introduction. He just walked in and grabbed the microphone and started talking. And I remember I was 12 years old, and I remember saying out loud, look what this man can do. I mean, he had that whole bit about just a black guy and a white guy, the difference of a black guy and a white guy walking in the woods and seeing a snake. And he's not using any words. And and the audience he's holding these people in his hand. And I didn't know I wanted to be a stand-up, but I was profoundly moved by the power that he possessed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of a kind, man. Well, all those guys you mentioned, just legends. So those are the people that you're admiring and enjoying growing up. But what makes you actually, pull the trigger, and say, I'm going to actually do my first gig?
Well, I got out of college, and I told my parents, well, we've done one of your things. Now I'm going to try one of mine. And I went down to an open mic night on Long Island, where I'm from. And it was one of those moments where, you know when you hit a golf ball right, you get that ping?
No, I've actually never hit a golf ball right.
Well, it's coming.
All right.
Just the odds alone is you're going to have to hit it right if you keep hitting it wrong for all these years.
That's true.
When you hit it, I just got that ping. I'm like, look, I don't know where this is going to go, but I want to come back and do this again. It was that familiar feeling, like, oh, okay, I belong here. I don't know how long. I don't know, what this is going to teach me or what's going to happen. But for right now, I belong here. So I just went to the next step. I go, what's the next thing to do? And I went back to another open mic, and I just kept going. And I've been doing this for like 30 years, so it still could just be a phase, Jason. My mother thinks it.
Yeah, well, you're just perfecting you're just at the driving range. You're teeing up questions for me, so it's great. So what are we? So what is that next step then? Do you just start moving? Move a little into New York City then, out of Long Island, and start doing gigs there?
Yeah, what happened was I was on Long Island. I was doing gigs, and the city there was a definite difference between a city comic and an island comic. At that point, Long Island comics were very animated. We would tell stories, we would do voices, we would use the entire stage, we'd walk around. City comics were suit and tie comics, we would call them. They were Tonight Show comics. It was set up, punchline, segue, set up, punchline, and they would stand right in front of the microphone, and that was it. They were more cerebral. And there's a story. I heard the story. I think I either heard it from Brian Regan or Dennis Regan, but the story was there was a club in Yonkers called Shooting Stars. And Friday Late Show, there was a city comic on stage, and they were just ripping him apart. They were just heckling him. He couldn't get a laugh, and finally he just snapped. And he goes, listen, I don't need you guys to laugh. I know this stuff is funny. I've done it on TV. And from the back of the room you heard, he's wounded. Let's get him.
They smell blood in the water.
Yeah. So it was the next step was to get into the city. And I didn't go for a long time because I knew that you wanted to make a good first impression, so you wanted to be. I wanted to be as strong as I could. So I worked a lot of the bars and stuff because bar owners found out that comedy was cheap to produce. So every night had a comedy club. I had a comedy show. So it was like Tuesday nights Jello shots, Wednesday night comedy. So you work in these bars in Connecticut and Jersey, but just to get some seat time,
Right.
So it was that's how I built it up, and luckily I had a good showing in the city and began to work those clubs. And then I started acting, and that's how all that stuff progressed.
I love that story. He's wounded. Let's get him. Did you?
Yeah.
Did you? What about for you? Did you ever have? Well, I guess a night that you specifically remember just totally bombing, and B, one that you think you particularly killed it somewhere along the way. Do any stand out as the superlatives?
Oh yeah, the worst gig you can get is opening for a band. Opening for a band is because they don't want to see you. You're in the way.
Right.
Opening for a band and some corporate gigs can be terrible because it's an away game for you. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know why you're there. They don't know how to put on a show.
Right.
So I opened for. I had a gig at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami for cancer doctors, and they were. I went on in the middle of the bill. And the guy introducing me was a doctor. He didn't know how to do it. He's on stage talking about, I don't know what they're talking about, but he's got two slides on stage of two cells, and he's pointing to the two cells. He's like, benign, malignant, benign, malignant. Remember, there's still no cure. We have to keep working hard. Our comedian's Adam Ferrara. And he walks on stage.
That's a setup.
Yeah, and I'm standing there with the two cells, and I got to go do my act, and they don't know what's going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your set, was it benign or malignant?
I got him after a while. It started out malignant, but thank God the laughter cured everything, and I ended up getting them. But yeah, that was a terrible gig, and I opened for Lionel Richie at the Greek Theater here in California. And the Greek, it's an amphitheater, so there's no roof. Right. Comedy needs a roof, Jason. The laughs have to bounce off somewhere. They just go straight up.
You can't blow the roof off. You can't blow the roof off.
Nothing. So I'm standing there, and I'm on stage, and there's people milling around, and it's I don't think it's going well because I can't hear anything. But I did my 20 minutes. I walked off stage, and the band was standing next to me. Lionel's band was in the wings, and Sheila E. was in the band at the time. And there was this giant bass player, and they were smiling like I thought I died. And they came over, and the giant bass player said to me, he goes, "You did great. Usually we stand here just to watch these guys die."
Well, I'm glad you didn't die. That's great. Okay, awesome. So from there, I think you've done about, 3 Comedy Central specials? I think that's right?
Oh, yeah, I got about 3 of those. I just, a couple albums. In fact, I just finished another album. I just finished a movie with Emma Roberts and Hayden Christensen called Little Italy. It'll be out early next year. But that was a lot of fun. We were in Toronto for about 6 weeks shooting that movie. Danny Aiello was in it. Andrea Martin played my mother. She was so sweet, and it was really a good time.
That's so great. Yeah, and I'm thinking, I think it was the Funny as Hell set you did. DC Improv had a clip of that up on their website, and it was the couples therapy part where he said, "I love you, but I just don't care."
I've been to a lot of therapy. I mean, I went to my own therapy too, because apparently I'm the problem, Jason.
Well, of course.
Yeah. So it's the amazing thing about it is you're never far from your roots. I mean, I'm such an Italian. My buddy picks me up after the therapy session. He's like, "How'd it go with the shrink?" I'm like, "He didn't get nothing out of me."
Oh, you're Tony Soprano with the shrink.
I love my mother. I'm not going to roll on her, for God's sake.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. But the couples therapy, you've brought your wife into some stuff, right? The beautiful she-devil?
Yes, my wife. That's my wife on the cover of that. Yeah, she's the best part of my life, and she's the one that keeps it going, and she's the one that can actually see the road ahead a little bit better than me. So it's nice to have a partner in crime. And
you're Catholic and she's Jewish, so that's like food, family, and guilt, you said.
Yeah, food, family, and guilt. It's pretty much, the values are pretty much the same. You know, I think I said in the special that in her family the guilt's better, my family the food's better.
That's great. Well, you've sort of we've talked a lot about your stand-up, but you alluded a little to your acting gigs too. A lot of us remember you as Needles in Rescue Me on FX.
Yes.
Memories of that, like what's Dennis Leary like? You know, we all know him from on screen, but what's he like behind the scenes?
Mm-hmm. He's pretty much that guy. I mean, there's not a lot of veil or pretense with Dennis. I mean, I've known him for, it's got to be almost 25 years now, and he's that guy. You know, he's in fact on Rescue Me, we did another show before that called The Job, which was a cop show, and that's where we all kind of met. And and on that show and on Rescue Me, Dennis's trailer was the barracks. We all hung out in the barracks, so it was very much a family situation, and he had an open door policy, and ESPN was always on during, so we'd sit around and just sit there and smoke and watch TV and make the TV show. It was funny because the smoke would just be billowing out of his trailer. It looked like we elected a pope. Just smoke was billowing out.
The black smoke or the white smoke. Is it benign or malignant? Look for the smoke.
Yeah. But that was, he's that guy. He's very much, and all the work he does with the firefighters, he's a good leader, and I learned a great deal. And he's given me a lot of opportunities. He was the first one to give me a great dramatic monologue, and I got a couple of those on Rescue Me. And he did a really cool thing after my first one. He left me a voicemail he goes, "Hey, I gave you the ball and you knocked it out of the park," and that was really, really special to me to get that from him. And I'll deny that I said this, but I love that big skinny dope.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been laughing a lot on this interview, but and rightfully so. It's an improv interview, but a DC Improv interview. But just one serious question for a second with Rescue Me. I mean, I honestly think that show it ran from 2004 to 2011. In an odd way, it helped us as a country to kind of move on after 9/11. I really do think so.
Yeah, he attacked. He attacked, for lack of a better word, the fear, or he looked the monster in the eye, and it was nice to be a part of that and be asked to be included in that, and to serve a greater purpose. I think we came into it, and Dennis wrote everything, and I think him and Peter Tolan and Evan Riley and I think John Scurry wrote a couple episodes too. They weren't afraid to address certain subjects and trust the actors to emotionally be where they needed to be to tell the story. So it was very. I'm very grateful to be a part of that.
Absolutely, and after that TV role, you get more start coming your way. Frank Varelli and Nurse Jackie.
Yeah, she was great. She's just so authentic and so generous as an actor. I mean, I met her, and you know her as as Carmela, but then when you walk in a room, it's not her at all. It's a totally different person. And she's from Long Island. She's from the same one town over where I grew up. So we had the same kind of frame of reference and drank water from the same well. So the communication was pretty easy with her. And just to be there in that space with her is like she really just exudes. Your game gets really good whether you like it or not. You know, when you play tennis or you play golf with a better player, you get elevated. She has that kind of gift. She's got that Tom Brady kind of I'm going to make you a better receiver. You know, she has that kind of energy about her.
You're like Deion Branch or one of the many carousel of receivers that come through. Oh, that's great.
I want to be Randy Moss. Can I be straight cash, homie?
Straight cash, homie. No, you're more like the Gronk. No, I'm just kidding. But one more show and then we'll wrap it up. Top Gear USA, you took on that version. Had you seen the British original before doing that one?
I have. I was a big fan of the English version, and so I had done another show. Rescue Me was coming to an end. We were doing the Rescue Me comedy tour, and we were on a tour bus. Dennis, Lenny Clark, the band, and I remember we're going through the night to the next stop. And Dennis goes, you know, what do you guys think about doing one more season with Rescue Me, and then we'll call it quits. And I remember Lenny and I go, no, we don't have Ice Age money, no. So he goes, all right, we'll do a couple more episodes, and then that'll be it. So I got offered. I'd done another show for History about cars because I like cars, and they didn't pick up the show, but they liked me, and they told me they had the rights to Top Gear, which I knew the show. And I said, don't screw it up. It's a great show. And they said, well, we want you to be a part of it. I'm like, well, I don't want to screw it up. It's a great show. She goes, well, it's done by the same producers. Why don't you just meet the guys? And I met the guys, and we both, the three of us really got along right off the bat. And we spoke and said, listen, if we're going to do this, we can't do an imitation of it. And the producer said, no, we don't want you guys to be an imitation. We want you to be who you are in this context. So we started shooting, and we found the show, like, I guess maybe the third or fourth episode when we went to Alaska. And that's where we really found the camaraderie that we were looking for. And we did 6 years and had a great time doing it. So, that was a great opportunity as well.
Absolutely. Well, it just proves you can do pretty much anything. But I'm glad that you're still out there, doing the stand-up tours because that's the bread and butter. And so, and you're hilarious. So thanks so much for taking the time to join us here. And also a special shout-out to Mark Stern over at the Tony Kornheiser Show. He's the one who helped put this together. So thank you, Mark. And, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, brother. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.